Okay, welcome students. This is Unit 1 review. Oh wait, we just went live. No, welcome students. This is Unit 1 review, and we're here with 5 of the 6 instructors, and we may end up with 6 of 6, which is fabulous. And as always, we are here to answer your questions. So the format for this will be a quick review of the lessons in Unit 1, and then we'll answer questions. So again, I just want to go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Professor Wilcox. I do sections 90, 91, and 92, and then we can just go down the line.
Hi, I'm Dr. Levesque. I'll be teaching section 96.
I'm Dr. McClellan, teaching 93, 94, 95.
Hi, I'm John Warren. Wait, my camera's not on. Wait, here you go. Hi, I'm John Warren, and I'll be teaching section 98.
I'm Steve Abrahamian. I'm teaching section 99.
Okay, so we are here and we are ready, and probably we're going to want, before we kind of dig in on the material, I think we want to make some comments just as a team about certain things that are happening. The first is that there was an incredible amount of movement during the add drop period, especially during the last few days. Students were leaving some sections and moving to other sections. Students were bailing and people were jumping in. And as a result, there is still students who are having trouble getting into eCollege or who have not been loaded fully into eCollege. And I would just encourage you in that instance to go ahead to the eCollege help desk and give them a call and see if they can get you in and get you on. So that is probably your best recourse. We as instructors can't really do that, but we're sympathetic. And as we often say here, no one ever loses points or loses an opportunity to do the work because of technical issues. And frankly, not being loaded into the course is a pretty big technical issue as far as I'm concerned. Anybody else want to comment on that before we move on to the other burning issue we're having? Okay, I'm getting a big... Oh.
Sorry, I wanted to just briefly mention, please, students, share your concerns with us about ProctorTrack, especially with regard to your ability to use it or not, because I just sort of reiterating that your grade should not suffer because of this. So if anything is causing that to happen, talk to us and we'll work on it. Like, you should not be in that position. So just be proactive and be vocal with us, because that's the only way we're going to know that you're having issues.
Yeah, let us know you're having issues, but actually ProctorTrack will and does handle all support issues for ProctorTrack. So if there is an actual issue in the way it's functioning, you can let us know that you're having some issues, but they'll be the ones who are actually helping you solve the issue and solve the problem. But as we say, you know, as I said, it will not affect your grade if you are having issues. So I just want to say a few words about ProctorTrack. As you see on the forum, we have a lively little discussion on ProctorTrack, including petitions and the like, which I think is great. And as we've indicated, we were given notice that this would be introduced into the course well past the date we'd like to be given it notice. We were given notice a few days before the course opened that we had to use this, and we had to do an incredible amount to restructure the course and to change things, and it was a difficult time. But this is, as we also indicated, a Department of Justice requirement going forward for online classes to adopt some sort of tracking procedure. So what ProctorTrack does, and let me be clear about this, what ProctorTrack does is it makes use of your webcam to monitor essentially your movements online and just face-to-face. So in other words, if you start taking the exam, you don't get up and someone else sits down and starts taking the exam. That's what it's doing. But let me be clear, there is no actual person watching you. No one is actually watching you. This is not like sitting in a classroom, right? If you're in this classroom, there's teachers all over the room, and he's watching you, and the TA is watching you take that test. That's, that's in some ways as an evasion too, right? There's all these people paying attention to see if you cheat. Here, there is just a computer algorithm that is watching to make sure nothing weird flashes in front of your camera that sends up some sort of flag that you've gone, you've left, or someone else has taken over, or the person who's sitting there isn't the person who started. That's all it's doing. There's no actual person. And if it identifies something either that you're doing on your web browser, like surfing Wikipedia at the same time as you're trying to take the exam, or some funny camera thing happens, it will flag it, and then it will say, we suspect there was some cheating here. This is what the computer algorithm says is the spot we think it would happen. Could you go check? That's all it does. Now, I realize that can feel like an invasion of privacy, and with a lot of people block their webcams to keep the powers that be from spying on them, but at least be assured that this is less invasive in some ways than what you get in a classroom setting, because if you have your friend come in and sit down and take your exam for you in a regular classroom, the teacher's going to go, who the heck are you? Get out of here. You're not John. You're some other guy. And kick you out of the room and fail both of you, So this is just a computer algorithm. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. Someone else talking?
You can go first.
Sure. All I was going to say is for those of you who are familiar with Turnitin, it's sort of just a video version of Turnitin. Turnitin is where you submit term papers, and it scans it, and it gives the instructors a report back to give us sort of a prediction as to whether or not you've plagiarized something. And most of the time, it's simply a quotation, and it's no big deal. And it seems to me that the Proctor Track is going to function in a similar way, but with a video feed that will give us a report back. And most of the time, if you're in your room and your buddies are making a lot of noise or something, I mean, we can go back and look at the video, and you're not going to fail the test over something like that.
What I was going to add is that students taking online courses have to expect some sort of software that's doing this in the future. It may not always be this specific software, and the fee structure may not always be the same. But it's not unreasonable to expect that there needs to be some sort of assurance that the cheating isn't going on. So I certainly understand everyone's upset about Proctor Track, but you have to understand that this is going to be the future of online courses, because people want some assurance that there's not the cheating going on. So while I certainly understand the complaint, especially about the fee structure, I think the way the fee structure is set up wasn't fair because it wasn't effectively communicated. I don't think that we can ever expect to go back to the way things were, where there was no sort of assurance from our end that there isn't some sort of cheating going on.
Yeah, and just as Craig says, the fact of the matter is this is just the way we're going to be moving forward. A lot of colleges see a lot of revenue come in through online courses. There's a lot of people taking online courses, and there's a lot of political pressure to make online courses continue to have this kind of success rate that we see with online courses, and people want to make sure that your degree means something. Right? Oh, this person got a degree here taking online courses. Well, how do we know that person actually did it? How do we know that person didn't pay some guy in India to take his course for him, or some guy in, Scandinavia to do your course? They want some assurance that your grade in a course means something, that your degree means something, and they're going to want to introduce these sorts of measures. It's just something to get used to, and frankly, if your school doesn't do this, they won't be in compliance, and it will reduce how much your degree is ultimately worth. So the Proctor Track is actually the cheapest option that Rutgers was able to find that did this type of work. And generally, a lot of schools will insist that you find a proctoring service and pay a proctoring service, usually about this much every instance of an exam, and go and take it at a proctoring service. So ProctorTrack is actually one of the least expensive options, and one of the reasons it was introduced so late, one of the reasons you didn't see it until you were already in the course, and I didn't even really understand that we were going to have to tell you that this was going to cost you money. One of the reasons you didn't see it is because there was so much haggling to get the price down to something that was resembling a reasonable price structure for the students. And we actually had to limit how many exams we could actually do to fit within that price structure, because if we had more exams, it was going to cost you significantly more by the hour to have the Proctor tracker on. So I know it's annoying, I know it's difficult, but it didn't have anything to do with us in terms of its ultimate rolling out at the time it was rolled out. But there were people who were trying to find a good solution. We're trying to keep your economic interests in mind as this was being rolled out, and future iterations of this course and other courses will have this requirement listed up front. So yes, can't blame you for being mad. No, I can't blame you for thinking this is creepy. But this is the first time that something like this, that you may have encountered something like this, but it won't be the last. Unless this is your last semester in school and you know for sure you'll never have to take an online course, you'll never have to do an online training again, this will not be your last encounter with this. In fact, I would suspect that it won't be too far in the future before you start seeing things like this at your job to track your productivity and a lot of other things. So yeah, it's scary, but that's yeah. So it's something to think about. Something really. Oh, sorry, I feel nauseous all of a sudden. Really gross thought. Anyway.
Well, so UPS drivers already have computers that track their every motion. So, if you're a UPS driver, you already have Big Brother watching your every move. So it's already here in some professions.
What can Brown do for you, right?
It can stalk you, apparently.
Yeah, but I'm sure people will look out for your interests. Politicians will care about the interests of you as you move into the workforce.
Well, so should we jump in on Unit 1?
Yes, I'm gonna shut my trap for a while and let the musical geniuses next to me describe how to look at pitch and talk about things that they've learned in this realm.
Yeah, this is if you've been to the Apple Store and seen the Genius Bar, this is the Music Theory Genius Bar right here. So this is just to introduce what these review sessions are. This is not your chance to learn all of the material in Unit 1, and so you know it. This is really just a short, brief spot check for us to kind of talk about the material, for you to ask questions. That's actually probably the most valuable part of this, and we hope that you'll be on Piazza and even join us on the call to ask us some questions. And we want to keep it short, so we're not even going to cover everything you need to know. It's just a chance to kind of cover some really quick stuff, like what's a scale, or not in this case, what's the staff, what are some notes, and maybe share some of our own like personal favorite ways that people remember some of this stuff. So again, ask us questions on Piazza, because that's the most valuable thing. And I have a question to start off with. If you're on Piazza, I posted a little picture showing the musician's theory of relativity, and this might be a unit or two in the future, but I want to know what you think this means. So just ponder that. You don't have to answer right now, but E equals F flat. So what is that all about? Anyway, so does anybody else want to jump in with, I don't know, their favorite Unit 1 topic or something like this? I'm happy to keep blabbing.
So I can jump in first, and it's actually related to your musician's theory of equality there. And what I'm getting from some students as being one of the most difficult aspects of this first unit is the concept of enharmonics and the idea of E and of F flat, and of those being equivalent. So I'm going to try something here that I haven't done before. I'm going to try the screen share function.
Excellent.
Let's see if this works. I apologize if it doesn't work right. Okay, so can you see the screen? Or not?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we had a lot of problems, and students often have a lot of problems with this enharmonics homework. And so I'll just show right into there. Okay. And what seems to throw students, especially students who are piano players, is this idea that the note can sound the same but can be spelled differently. And what I really want to stress is that spelling really, really matters with pitches. E natural and F flat are two different notes, even if they do sound equivalent, and if they are played on the same note as the piano. And so that is an assignment that I have found students have some particular difficulty with.
I agree, and I think it is one of the toughest topics in music theory in general, because how can the same note be two different notes? I think maybe a really simple analogy is like what is it called, a homonym, where there's two words that sound the same but are spelled differently and have different meanings. And I think it's all about the musical meaning, and as you go through scales and chords, you'll find that notes have specific meanings in specific situations, like a C can be the bottom note of a C chord, but the middle note of an A chord, and it's the same note, but it's playing two different roles, two different functions within the musical context, and that's where the musical spelling is going to start to be important. So another thing I would add is that some of the stuff in the course you sort of have to take on faith at the beginning, because you have to teach the subject sequentially, but you're not always going to get the full picture until later in the course. So to some degree you sort of have to say, well, I don't maybe get the background on this, but I'm going to go with it, I'm going to understand it, and it will all come clear as I go through the course.
Right. And later on we're going to be learning scales, we're going to be learning forms of minor, and this is really going to come and pay dividends then, because there are going to be instances where you're going to see an E sharp being different than an F, and writing as an F natural would be incorrect. So although the concept of harmonics may be a little academic at this point, and you may not see the exact application, you do just have to take a little bit on faith and understand that, especially in later units when we're doing those scales and those minor scales. It's going to be really important that you understand why those are different and how they're different.
That reminds me of a question we get sometimes, whether the course is sequential, and one topic builds to the next. And I would say that's definitely the case, with the exception of Unit 2 on rhythm, which is kind of a self-contained topic. And of course, rhythm is vital to music. It's not some remote topic that's irrelevant by any means, but there's sort of two fundamental components of music. There's pitch and there's rhythm. And Unit 2 is all about rhythm, but Unit 3 follows directly from Unit 1 and then continues building up to Unit 6. So Unit 2 is kind of this little vacation over to rhythm, but apart from that, the course is definitely sequential, and it's important to, if you're in Unit 3, if you haven't done Unit 1, you're going to be lost. If you're in Unit 4 and you haven't really understood Unit 3, you're going to be lost. So get solid on each unit as you go. That's really important. Yeah, anyone else have some music theory jewels of wisdom to throw in? We can, I think a really valuable thing too is, as Dr. Levesque mentioned, is to sort of talk about some of the assignment, the homeworks, and if students have any questions about just how do I do this homework, apart from the background knowledge about it, just what am I being asked to actually do, and what is the task here. So be sure to throw us some questions on Piazza. And as Doc Wilcox has pointed out, you can now join us on the Google Hangout and talk to us live in real time, and we can hear your voice and see you, and you can interact with the real us, which is very exciting. So
maybe we should take a few minutes to talk about the creative project also.
Excellent idea, yeah.
Yeah, I actually wanted to jump in real quick on the creative project. There was actually a couple instances where the copy didn't seem to work very well when they broadcast the shell, and one of them is I had noticed. I noticed a couple assignments which seemed to have been messed up. But one thing that I did notice is that for some reason the old version of the creative project instructions was popping up when I clicked on it. So I actually went through and made sure the new version is updated. So hopefully the instructions are a little clearer, and if you are having trouble with it, download it again and make sure it looks correct for you. We'll put that onto Piazza just so you can see it. Generally, it's the same assignment, so if you followed the old instructions, there won't be any issues. But why don't you guys talk a little bit about what you'd like to see from the creative project and what you feel like the students need to get done?
Just a quick technical note about it. We get a question a lot. We tried to clarify the instructions this time, but it says write the same melody twice, one in treble clef and one in bass clef. And often it's a little confusing, like am I writing two melodies and what's the difference? And just to explain that, I mean, read the instructions carefully, but you're writing one melody and then you're rewriting it an octave lower or higher than the first melody. So if your melody started on A in the treble clef, move it down an octave and start the same melody and write all the same pitch names in the same order again, an octave lower. If you're not clear on octaves, that won't really make sense to you, but I just want to mention that technical aspect of the assignment.
Yeah, something I wanted to add about the creative project is that in addition to that, what we're doing is we're actually testing your ability to transpose, which is a concept that will come into play later, but really it's just a way to get really solid at both the treble clef and the bass clef, right? And we've been through this on Piazza with several people, but if you're a bass player or a tuba player, you're going to be very comfortable with the bass clef. So I've been encouraging students that email me to compose the melody in the clefs they're comfortable with and then transpose it, move it up to the treble clef. And it's a good way to really get solid at the clef that you're not comfortable in playing in. And then vice versa. If you play the alto saxophone, you probably are just learning about the bass clef. So this is a great opportunity to compose something up in the treble clef, and then just by moving it down to the bass clef, it's going to really force you to ingrain those note names and whatever trick you're using. Good burritos don't fall apart, or all cars eat gas, or any of those things you got from piano or guitar lessons, or maybe things you just learned here. So
did you say cars eat grass?
I did.
Oh, wow.
I mixed them. I mixed my musical metaphors. I'm sorry.
I like that. It makes it even more memorable in a strange way.
One day cars will eat grass.
Exactly.
Or corn. Corn.
And another thing to throw in there, you students are lucky because if you were taking this course in the year, let's say 1600, they used to use like 5 or 6 different clefs. And now we just use 2 mainly, with sometimes a third one, the alto clef, which you will have to learn. But just be glad you're not living 500 years ago, because times were much harder in the world of clefs.
In the dental world too.
One brief thing about the creative project.
No.
No.
We don't want to hear from Paul tonight.
Welcome, Paul.
That's my punishment for coming late.
Please welcome our 6th theory professor, Dr. Unterreiner.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. Came right from a rehearsal. Just got home. But I just wanted to say about the creative project. One of the things that's in the instructions that I think is helpful and should make it fun is that you want to make this melody appealing to you. You know, you want to make it something that you can play if you play an instrument or sing through, and as best you can with what knowledge you have, make it have musical sense. One of the suggestions we offer in the instructions is starting and ending on the same note usually helps, but there are a lot of different things you can play around with to make it not just an exercise in placing the pitches, but something that you can enjoy doing.
Absolutely, and a lot of students have fun with what does the melody remind you of? What does it mean? What does it does it conjure an image or a situation or a story? And sometimes we've gotten really elaborate, interesting stories just in the that are told in the space of 20 notes, and it's really fun to read and listen to that stuff. So we look forward to what you guys are going to do. Should we just talk briefly about some of the other topics? We should probably wrap it up soon because, again, this is a brief, it's not a comprehensive review, but we should just maybe mention some of the other topics.
Well, I mean, does someone want to? I think the hardest stuff is, the division of the octave, the semitones and the whole tones, and that really plays into Unit 3. And I mean the ottava signs and things like that are more difficult, but in some ways they're less critical as we move forward. So I think semitones and whole tones are one of those critical elements you really want to lock down, and how to count them even, which if you don't understand, you're going to have all sorts of trouble moving forward. So anybody want to take a stab at that?
I would just briefly say that for those of you students who are pianists, you have a slight advantage there, because I think the piano makes a great map of music theory. It's kind of your musical geography, and if you're not familiar with the piano keyboard, even if you're never going to play piano, it can be a really good visual aid for all of this stuff. So I recommend, there's a lot of keyboards and pianos inside the course and in the diagrams, and there's a Play Me piano you can use. But for learning semitones and whole tones, that's a really valuable tool.
Trying to figure, I can switch over to my screen share again now that I'm an expert at doing this. Let's see. Okay, so hopefully you're looking at the keyboard now. Of course, I can't see it because I didn't minimize the screen. Anyway, so what the other professors are talking about on this keyboard, especially getting the half steps and whole steps. See my mouse. I'm not sure if the resolution is that good. You can see the half step is between any two adjacent notes. Most of the time, that would be between a white note like this F and the black note between the F and the G. And then that black note would be the F sharp or the G flat. What often confuses students is these spots where we have the gaps, the two naturally occurring half steps between E and F and B and C. So when you're counting half steps or when you're counting whole steps, it's generally very straightforward until you get to those spots. So oftentimes students will try and count whole steps and they'll do great, F, G, A, B, and then they'll just jump to C for that next whole step, when in fact B to C is that half step. So learning the layout of the keyboard is really essential for the course, and part and parcel of that is understanding these naturally occurring half steps, again, between E and F and B and C. So the half steps are between any two adjacent keys, whether they be white or black. In case of B and C, they'd be two white notes, E and F, two white notes. And the whole steps would be two of those half steps, from C to D or from B to C sharp, because there's no, again, there's no black note in between those. And I really can't stress enough how understanding that layout and getting that counting down is going to help you later. When we start doing things like intervals and even scales, if you can't effectively count those half steps and catch those spots between the naturally occurring half steps, you're going to run into a lot of problems.
I absolutely agree, and there's a built-in problem with music theory, which is that the piano keyboard has those half steps visible between the adjacent white notes, but when you get to the musical staff, you're not going to have any visual guide to where those half steps are. So for example, the E to F in the treble clef is from the bottom line of the staff of the 5 lines to the next space up. But that distance on the staff is exactly the same as the next line to space and the next one and the next one. It all looks the same, so you have to memorize where those are, and that's a place that students often get tripped up, is not visually remembering where those are on the staff. So
what makes
the keyboard and the staff kind of back and forth.
what makes it even more difficult is the change in clef. So not only do you have to understand where that E and that F line are to find the pass script there, but you have to understand that it's going to move depending on which clef you're in.
Absolutely. And little stuff like that might sound like a minor point, but little stuff like that is the nitty-gritty. You're going to be in the midst of an assignment, and that's where it's going to, because you may not even realize that you're going wrong. So you have to be meticulous and always kind of double check and have those things really, really solid as you go through. And I don't mean to make that sound scary. You will do fine, but it's the little things that count. That's kind of what I want to say.
Yeah, I would just also encourage students that whenever they can to take advantage of one of the piano apps built into the course. I know when I took music theory in person as an undergraduate, the first thing I did before any test is I would draw a keyboard on my music paper, and I would refer to that. In this class, that's totally fine. I mean, you should be using the piano as a tool to help check your work, essentially. Make sure that you are really on point with semitones, because as both Craig, Dr. Levesque, and Dr. McClellan have just said, the notation gets very, very confusing. So, the keyboard's always away. The keyboard's never going to change. C is always going to be where C is, whereas if you're doing C clef or treble clef, that same note's going to move around. So just refer to the piano whenever you can.
Yeah, and actually this is one thing that that I will say for ProctorTrack is they have worked very hard to allow the pop-up piano that we have all over the course to work in the exams without causing a flag. So that involved a lot of hair pulling and testing and all-night software development from those guys. So I mean, even though it's kind of creepy software, they're good guys who are trying to help in the situation, because I refuse to allow the course to run if every time you popped up the piano it was going to cause a problem. So feel free to use it often, use it as much as you can. So are we all feeling satisfied? Are we all feeling like we've had something to say? We'll probably, as we move into rhythm, we're probably going to be a little more formal. Rhythm is one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult unit, it seems to me, in the whole course. So we'll probably do a fairly rigorous, Craig will probably do a fairly rigorous review. I'm just volunteering people now.
I'm really fun at parties.
You seem fun. You seem fun at parties. I'd like to get Mr. Abrajanian here at a party too. He looks like he'd be a blast. But Paul,
in student theory, of course.
Yeah. So in a perfectly acceptable way. So anyway, we've talked a lot about a lot of things, including ProctorTrack, and we do want to hear what you have to say. One further note is that because ProctorTrack requires you install software, you're going to have to do this on a computer you have regular access to. You can't do it on a lab computer. Those lab computers will be locked down by the software tech guys, and you won't be able to install the software. So as for finding a quiet room, just use your room. The other thing is there are strict FERPA guidelines, which have really serious consequences if you break them. Guidelines that don't allow us to share your grades with your parents, for instance, or even with you over email. It has to come through the normal grading channels. And those laws also apply to ProctorTrack, and they are quite serious about those. So you can expect that your privacy will be maintained by them, because if they don't maintain your privacy, they will be sued for lots and lots of money. Their business model will fail, and they'll end up in the state pen. So this is not their desire, and is not your desire. This is the fact of the matter, is they are under an incredible amount of restrictions on how this data is used, and these laws mirror the laws your doctors have to follow to pass around your medical information. HERPA, FERPA. There's a reason they sound the same. They're both really hard with lots and lots of little restrictions and pretty heavy on the penalties. So we understand, again, that all of this is an issue. But take a deep breath as we move into this world, and as politicians who we all know are looking out for our best interests do their best to make sure that the people they work for don't lose money. Just joking. We will do our best to help you guys through this. That's what all this is getting to. We understand. Okay. Why don't we all go around sign off? I'm signing off. I'm Doc Wilcox.
Have a good night, Dr. Levesque.
Have a good night, Professor Warren.
Good night, Steve Abrahamian.
Good night, Dr. Undreiner.
And Dr. McClellan, good night, everyone. Remember that we're real humans, and we want to get your questions on email and on Piazza, and we're here for you. So go to bed. All right, good night.
See, we need to go to bed because we're old.
That's
They are all young and
stay up all night if you
get to
want.
bed
Sure.
by 10. All right, raise your hand. Who here is it past their bedtime already? Who here has kids that should be in bed? Yeah, no.
Mine is in bed.
I have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
wife who should be in bed.
He's
Oh, ew. Oh, I see. All right. The newlyweds has a wife who needs to be
Anyway.
in there. Okay.
Good night.
We can cut the end of this.
yes.
We can't, but that's okay. All right, bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night.